Welcome and greetings to all from the OMNIX USA team. We are grateful you could join us today for the OMNIX educational series. Today's topic is square and rectangle tube bend dies. The presentation will take about 15 minutes, followed by a live question and answer conference call. We encourage you to submit your questions during the presentation using the chat feature on the screen. Today's agenda will cover square and rectangle bend die types, finger options, grip styles, grip surfaces, and materials. I will now turn the mic over to today's presenter, Andrew Sobel.
Thank you, Michael. Square and rectangle rotary draw tube bending is applicable for minimum Ds of bend of 3D and greater. For square and rectangle bending applications, the radii are typically defined by the inside radius, or ISR. However, the radii can also be defined by the centerline radius, or CLR. It is important to distinguish this point. Square and rectangle rotary draw bending utilizes the same tooling components as standard round tube rotary draw bending: a bend die, clamp die, pressure die, mandrel, which is not visible in this image, and wiper die. Compared with standard round tubes, different forces affect square and rectangle shaped tubes. Standard round tubes are subject to uniform force distribution across the profile of the tube, whereas square and rectangle tubes are subject to higher forces against the flat surfaces, rather than uniform force distribution across the profile. Additionally, square and rectangle tubes often tend to result in stretching and sucking in of the outside radius, wrinkling and sucking in of the inside radius, and lateral expansion of the tube. The bend die is a tool which allows tubes to be bent around it and defines the resulting shape of the bent tubes. For square and rectangle tubes, the applicable bend die styles are one piece, horseshoe, flange mounted, split actuated, and leaf style. For square and rectangle tube applications, split bend dies can be shimmable, allowing the operator to add or remove shims to allow for batch-to-batch variations in the square and rectangle tube dimensions. One-piece bend dies are solid dies and are offered with removable or non-removable grips. The limitations of one-piece bend dies are that it may be difficult to bend 180 degrees with 1D bends. You must have adequate distance between the tool post and the bend die insert. And the keyways may not offer enough engagement for smaller centerline radii. Horseshoe bend dies are very similar to one-piece dies, but horseshoe dies can allow for left and right-handed bending. Horseshoe bend dies can double your die life by allowing the use of both straight sections as grips. The limitations of horseshoe bend dies are that they can only bend 110 degrees maximum when using a wiper die, and that horseshoe dies must have adequate distance between the tool post and the tube groove. Flange style dies mount directly to the bend head using bolts instead of having a tool post and nut. This is useful for very small centerline radii where the tool post will not fit through. Flange dies can be made to stack with one spool, one piece, or horseshoe bend dies on top. The limitations of flange bend dies are that they are not able to have both ways rotation, they must be bolted to the bend head, and drop clamps may have a possibility of interfering with the flange mounting. Split actuated bend dies have strong springs to pop the top plate away from the die after bending. During bending, the top plate is collapsed down using hydraulic actuators, bolts, or an integrated tool post actuator. This allows tubes to be released from the bend die without marking. The limitations of split actuated bend dies are that the centerline radius or inside radius must be sufficiently large to fit actuators between the tool post and the tube groove, and that the actuators must be purchased separately or integrated into the machine bend head. Leaf bend dies are only used for very thin wall applications or when extreme grip is required. Instead of only holding the tube in the vertical plane, leaf bend dies grip in the vertical plane as well. The limitations of leaf bend dies are that they are expensive, they are not field adjustable, and they do not allow for much batch-to-batch tube variation, or the die may only grip vertically, which could result in wrinkling. Single finger dies are typically used for square or rectangle tubing instead of using a standard tube groove. When bending with a standard square groove, the tube will expand and jam itself into the die. Single finger style alleviates that issue by having the clamp and pressure dies grip in the vertical plane as well as horizontal, so when the clamp die retracts, the tube can be easily removed. The only other way around this is a split actuated die. Depending on the application and bender configuration, the finger can be straight or tapered and can be positioned on the top or bottom of the tube. Square and rectangle bend dies can utilize different grip styles, including inserted grips and compound grips. Inserted grips are removable, replaceable, and available in various lengths. Compound grips are used for short distances between bends or for bend-on-bend applications with no straight. The gripping section grips onto the tube during the bend. It is often made separately and attached to the bend die. The grip length is dependent on the parameters of the tube and usually has a special surface treatment. The surface of the clamp has a significant impact on the functionality of the tools. There are 6 basic surface types: smooth, grit blast, surf alloy, flame spray, serration, and knurling. Smooth grip is a tube groove with no surface treatment. Smooth grip is used in applications where it is necessary to take care of the visual quality of the surface of the tube. The disadvantage is that smooth grip requires the use of long clamps so that there are no markings from gripping. Smooth grips are commonly used in the furniture manufacturing industry. Smooth grips are only used for highly cosmetic applications. Grit blast is a gentle roughening of the functional surface of the clamp. Compared to a smooth surface, this grip does not particularly affect the length of the clamps. Although we do not need to extend the clamps with grit blast, we cannot shorten them either. The advantage of grit blasted clamps is that they do not lower the quality of the outer surface of the tubes after gripping. Surf alloy is a carbide-based electric arc spray treatment. Surf alloy achieves greater roughness and reduces the dimension of the clamp by 0.03 of an inch to 0.07 of an inch. We recommend producing the diameter of the tube groove at the nominal dimension of the tube. This has a positive effect on the gripping surface and allows us to shorten the length of the clamp. Surf alloy grips leave medium markings on the bent tube. Flame spray uses a high-velocity oxygen fuel process to build up the tube groove by about 0.05 of an inch. This creates extra pinch that results in more grip than surf alloy and a medium amount of marking. This has a positive effect on the gripping surface and allows us to shorten the length of the clamp. Serrated grips are machined teeth in the surface of the groove. The main advantage of serration is that it allows us to significantly reduce the clamp length. The coarseness of the serration is chosen for the diameter of the tube. Coarseness is specified by the number of teeth per inch, and we typically use 16 or 32 teeth per inch. Serrations leave markings on the bent tubes and are only applicable for straight clamps and for straight sections of compound grips. Knurling is a coarse surface treatment that allows for the clamp length to be significantly reduced. We have 3 levels of coarseness: 12, 16, or 20 teeth per inch. The coarseness levels depend on the dimension of the tube, from 1.18 inches to 5.51 inches. Knurl grips leave heavy markings on the bent tube. The applicable materials for square and rectangle bend dies are 4140 nitrided or through-hardened tool steel. 4140 nitrided is the OMNI standard durable tooling material. 4140 nitrided is more forgiving and tends to mushroom when crashed instead of cracking. The case-hardened outer layer is harder than tool steel at the surface level, and if you wear through the case hardening, 4140 nitrided tools can be case hardened again and refurbished. Tool steel is comparatively more expensive, more brittle, and more likely to crack if dropped or crashed. Conversely, compared with 4140 nitrided, tool steel can provide extended tool life for high volume applications. We will now move to the live question and answer session. Any unanswered questions during the presentation will be addressed during the question and answer session. To join the conference call, please dial 970-822-8670 and use the conference ID provided in the chat box. On behalf of the entire OMNI team, thank you for joining us today.